Hi folks, I am here live. It's Vicky Midwood. I'm talking to you today about autoimmune disease and inflammation. Why those two things together? Well, they are inextricably linked. So one basically causes the other, and so you can't separate the two. So first of all, I want to say welcome to all of the new people who may not have seen me in person yet, doing a live. So hi Lorraine, you managed to watch, that's brilliant. Hi Chelsea. So what I want to do tonight, I don't want to be on here forever because your evening is precious time, but I do want to make sure that I do interact with you guys and hopefully give you the information that you require. And for those of you who've answered the questions, you know, the 3 questions that were part of you joining the group, and the information that you have given me has been really, really helpful, because it means then now I can give you hopefully the stuff that you are going to find useful. And this cropped up lacking in energy, lacking in motivation, fatigue, various issues like MS, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, problems with menopause. And all of those things can be alleviated, some of them reversed, by little tweaks, not massive changes. And I think this is why we get put off when we get a ton of information and we think we have to change everything all in one go, and we get so confused because we're told this from this person and this from this person, and then we hear this on the TV, and then we watch another program and it tells us something else, and blah 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 blah, blah, and we try and do everything. We end up doing nothing, and I know that because I've been there. So just to let you know a little bit about me, folks, I've been in health and wellness for at least 27 years. I started by fluke as a fitness instructor when I was 21. I'm now 50. It's my 50th year this year. And I have to say, even though I've gone through everything I've gone through, I feel happier and more content now than I did back in my 20s and 30s, that's for sure. And my aim is to share what I've gleaned from my journey with you guys, because I'm fortunate enough to have had a shitload of crap go on in my life, which means that I've learned a lot. And because I'm a bit of an anorak and I love studying stuff and understanding why, it's helped me to help myself and to help a lot of other people as well. And I'm sure you guys can relate because we've all got a story to tell. So what my main issue was, back when I was sort of 43, 44, I started to get unexplained symptoms that I kind of just put down to being stressed. I was running my own business. I'd just finished doing my degree. I'm a single parent and my mum wasn't well. My dad's illness was getting worse. I lived in London on my own, no help whatsoever, and my parents were up in the north, so I was toing and froing up and down the M1 and trying to start my own business and teaching in a college of further education. So I'm sure you can all relate. We've all got stuff going on, and I started to get muscle aches and started to feel like I couldn't manage my weight as well as I used to be able to. By the way, I've always had issues with my weight, but that's a whole other story. I was anorexic and bulimic, and I'm a recovered alcoholic, and I used to smoke, and I've got issues with sugar addiction, which I'm getting over, but they still crop up. So I'm by no means perfect. But all of those things have led me to know what I know now. They've also led me to have my heart attack, which I had just over a year ago. And they've also led me to have leaky gut, which has caused my autoimmune Hashimoto's, which some of you might know as hypothyroidism or autoimmune hypothyroiditis. So that immune issue caused me other problems apart from the heart attack, but they all stem from the same thing, and that's inflammation. And this is why I said right at the start, you can't separate the two things, because inflammation is going to cause autoimmune issues, and inflammation has main causes, and the main causes are, first and foremost, your emotional stress. Second, your diet. Third, the toxins that we are surrounded by and that we put in and on our bodies without oftentimes realizing it. So those 3 things are the main key issues. And I know that most people think, oh, it's all about diet first, diet first. Actually, yes, diet is really important, But you can eat all the best organic produce in the world and have the most amazing diet. But if you are emotionally stressed or you're going through trauma, then it's not going to make as massive a difference as perhaps you've been led to believe. So one of the comments that I read by somebody was, there's so much confusion out there. How do I know who to listen to? Hi, Fiona. And it's a really good point. So let me tell you about where I come from. So I am not a medical doctor. I am somebody who has learned through experience and being a right old nosy person and asking a shit ton of questions from people who are professionals in the field of medical science, naturopathic science, homeopathic science, functional medicine, and others who are specialists in their field. For example, I work with a coach and mentor who is functional and naturopath, who also specialises in gut health and autoimmune issues. And I work with a couple of people in America as well. So although I don't have the qualifications, if you like, on paper, I have got the means to the people who have access to the very up-to-date information. And the stuff that I'm talking about is the stuff that your general practitioner is not going to be talking about. For two reasons. They're not trained in it. They're trained how to sort out your symptoms and make you feel better. They are not taught to deal with the root cause. They're taught to make you feel better. A lot of the doctors that I work with were medical doctors and were so hacked off with that system that they weren't treating the cause, that's why they went on to become functional medical practitioners, because they needed the whole body approach. And you cannot separate your mind from your body. And that's why, going back to what I said, the three things were, emotional stress is key when it comes to autoimmune issues and when it comes to inflammation, because how we think and how we feel affects our whole nervous system, and that affects everything, your hormones, whether your gut is working properly or not, etc. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. So the autoimmune issues, so to cut a long story short, I found out after a while of feeling really not well and going back to the GP numerous times to be told, oh, it's your age, oh, it's probably early menopause, oh, actually it's depression, would you like some antidepressants? Absolutely not. None of those things applicable. There is something going on, and I know that it's not all in my head. And I paid for a private blood test, and that showed up some really interesting information. I actually predicted that I would have a heart attack unless I changed things drastically. I did change things, obviously not drastically enough, because I still had the heart attack. But to be fair, knowing my history and knowing now about autoimmune issues and inflammation, it was going to happen. It was going to happen, and it didn't matter that I'd been a fitness instructor for 27 years and how fit I was, because it wasn't about that. It was about inflammation. So this is what I'm going to be talking to you about. So I've got a few little notes here. So when I talk about autoimmune diseases or issues, let me just clarify. I'm talking about rheumatoid arthritis. Some of you may believe, well, you get that when you get older. No. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune issue. Things like lupus, things like diabetes, which we are now relating to being autoimmune, along with Alzheimer's and dementia. They're going to be reclassified as autoimmune issues. Things like fibromyalgia, things like multiple sclerosis, and things like what I have, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Now that is the autoimmune version. There are different versions of Hashimoto's, by the way, but I'm not going to go into that now. So those are the things that I'm talking about, autoimmune disease. Well, if your immune system is working properly, then it should really help you to get rid of viruses and bacteria and anything in your body that is not going to be helpful to it and that's going to potentially make you ill. That's when we're all functioning well. And hi Michelle, hi Yvonne, and everything is working as it should do. If, however, things go awry with our immune system, all of a sudden the cytokines, the messengers in your immune system are basically being told, actually, this is a foreign invader, this should not be here. And so what happens then is everything kicks in and does what the immune system does when it's got proper bacterial viruses in there, it tries to kill off the cells that are carrying them. So in effect, an autoimmune disease or issue is your body trying to kill off its own self, its own cells. And one of the things, and I think it was one of the ladies mentioned the fatigue is just like horrendous. Yeah, that was what I noticed more than anything. If you have an autoimmune issue, the fatigue is horrendous. It's not just oh, I'm exhausted from overdoing it and just, you know, overworking. It's like a whole body exhaustion, fatigue. It's just like everything. And if you have got something like fibromyalgia or rheumatoid arthritis, not only that, you've got pain as well. So it might be joint pain, it might be muscle pain. And when I knew it was something unusual is because I did a fair old amount of training, but I know my body. I've been training for a long time, and I was getting aches, but they were not the overtraining muscular aches that relate to training too much. They were different, and I knew something wasn't right. I just didn't know what it was. Now, for people who have got fibromyalgia and for rheumatoid arthritis, it can be in different places on different days, and there's not necessarily an obvious correlation that you know about, but pain makes you feel depressed. Pain also is a stressor. And you know, I was talking about emotional stress as well. That's one of them, because if we're in pain, we feel anxious, we feel down. If we feel anxious and we feel down, we are upset about that because we don't want to feel that way. And it may be that we focus on how bad we feel, which in and of itself creates more stress. And stress has a big effect on your gut. Now, your gut has everything to do with inflammation and autoimmune issue. Being that what tends to happen is the whole digestive tract, and it affects the ability of the microbiome and the bacteria in that microbiome to do their job properly. There's also a change in your hormone levels. When you're stressed, we bring in more adrenaline and cortisol. Now, adrenaline comes from internal organs, as does cortisol, which are all linked to your digestive system. When you are in a state of stress, ideally you should be running away or you should be fighting, which means that your body doesn't need to work on digesting. Digestion kind of gets suppressed, your fat burning system gets switched off, and it means that your gut, whatever your gut was up to, that whole flow gets interrupted. There's also going to be a differential in your serotonin. And I think some of you might have read that when cortisol comes in, serotonin drops. Serotonin makes you feel good, lifts your mood, makes you feel happier. So if you're in pain, it makes sense that you want more serotonin, not less. But if you're stressing yourself because you're in pain, you are depleting your already low serotonin. Now, when you've got low serotonin, your brain is going to send a message via the vagus nerve. You've got a nerve that runs from your gut to your brain, from your brain to your gut, and it's a two-way thing, and it's going all the time. I was talking to a client about this yesterday. It's like there's a chatter going on, stomach, and in between this vagus nerve to various organs, including your nervous system. So when the serotonin levels are dropped, it means what lifts them fast? Refined carbohydrates and sugar. Yeah, sugar is instantaneous fix. It lights up the serotonin both in the brain but also in the digestive tract, particularly if it comes directly from sugar, because it goes straight onto your tongue. It starts to break down in your mouth because it's carbohydrate. It breaks down immediately in your mouth, and it gets into your bloodstream pretty damn quickly if it's pure sugar. So if you're going to drink something like a fruit juice, or a coffee that's got, say, a flavoured syrup and some cream, which is basically all sugar. Dairy, by the way, is if it's not full fat, so low fat milk, kind of just works like sugar in your system because there's none of the fat to break down the natural milk sugar that's in there. So think of skimmed milk as being sugar, basically. So you've got sugar in your drinks, that gets into your system quick. Or you want a biscuit, or you want some sweeties. I know one of the ladies in one of the groups that are doing some work with me at the moment on the group program, the Eliminate to Feel Great plan, she was saying she likes kiddies jelly sweets. Why? Because they get to your system quick. She's in a very stressful job. Her serotonin levels are going to be dropping, so her brain's going to be saying, have a quick fix, jelly babies, or whatever other kids sweets you like, because they get into your system quick. So where is the link between that inflammation and autoimmune, I hear you say? Well, unfortunately, when it comes to your gut lining is literally one cell thick. So a cell is just like, picture a millimetre, if you like, on a ruler. Yeah, it's teeny tiny. It's probably less than that actually, but it's very, very thin, and it has little tiny holes in it that you can't see with your naked eye, but they are just really tiny little holes. Think of maybe muslin. It's not completely solid cotton, is it? It's got kind of little tiny microscopic holes. Well, the cell lining of your gut is like that. Now what happens is, over time, if you have too much sugar that goes into your system, if you have other things that cause inflammation, which I'm going to mention in a moment, then those holes start to get a little bit bigger, and over time they get a little bit bigger, and over time they get to be more of them and bigger. And basically what they're doing is they're allowing stuff to go through that protective cell membrane layer that stops stuff from going where it shouldn't be. And unfortunately, that's when your immune system goes, hang on, I've got bits of protein coming through here, I've got bits of fat coming through here, I've got bits of this coming through. They must be invaders. They are in a place where they shouldn't be. I don't recognize them. So your autoimmune system says, let's just kill them. Let's kill these cells off. Now, it could be that autoimmune issue kicks in your thyroid. It could be that it kicks in your joints. It could be that it kicks in muscularly. It can kick in your brain. It can also kick in your pancreas. And pretty much anywhere, pretty much any organ can be affected by what is going on through what's happened with the holes in your gut. Now that's what we call leaky gut. You may have heard of it. There's something in your gut which is pretty strong, and if it helps, you kind of think of it like this, if you like. So there's like little tiny gaps, can you see in my knuckles? And as those gaps kind of widen, yeah, it's going to let stuff go through the gaps, and this stuff is going where it shouldn't be. Now here's a kicker which made such a change to one of my clients, and it's something that's so easy for you to do. Because we rush when we eat, maybe we don't even bother sitting down, maybe we're eating in the car or standing up or eating at our desk or eating while talking and taking in a lot of air. We don't chew our food anywhere near as well as we should do, which often means that we've got big chunks of food going down into our stomach. And because we are not doing what we should do and getting into the cephalic phase of digestion, the cephalic phase of digestion just simply means that you are getting prepared to eat. So in the real world, you would smell food, you would take your time to sit down at the table, chat with company, have a glass of water, and just get yourself calm and in what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest nervous system, so that your body goes, I've smelt food, I know that I'm going to be eating. Pancreas, liver, gallbladder, can you do what you need to do? Can you start making the acids and the enzymes that are necessary for my tummy and my intestines to deal with the food that's coming in? Now that's what should happen. But if you're eating on the run and you don't even think about the food, it's just in your hand and then it's in your mouth, your body has not had the chance to bring in the hydrochloric acid into the stomach, to bring in the digestive enzymes that are needed to break down the fats and the protein and everything else. So you're eating on the run, you're probably not chewing very well, you're probably in a state of stress, and so all of this stuff's hitting your digestive system, and chunks of food are going to be creating these holes. Now, this effect happens even more so when we've got something that breaks down zonulin, which unfortunately things like grains are the worst offenders, because what we've got is something called zonulin that holds the kind of the cells, if you like, together and keeps everything in the gut tight and compact. And when we've got something that attacks that, it's going to part even more. So over time, and this is why we don't tend to get these issues until we're a bit older, because it doesn't happen after sort of a year or 2 years. It happens, like with me, when I'm in my 40s. And for a lot of ladies, that's the time as well when we start having issues with menopause. So what happens? You go to your GP and your GP says, oh, it's your age, it's your menopause, just, expect it, which is a load of rubbish, by the way. And so we kind of go away thinking, well, you know what, it must be in my head. I should just put up with it. I shouldn't really worry about it. Maybe I feel like this. Maybe it's because I'm old. And it's not, right? It's because over the years, we have not been chewing well. We've been eating too many refined carbohydrates. Grains, and particularly wheat, are horrendous when it comes to causing inflammation. Dairy, particularly the casein in dairy, causes issues for many of us. We've also got the biggest culprit, which is sugar. And sugar is in everything. And I'm sorry if you tell me that you don't eat sugar. I'm going to say you probably do, but you just don't know it. You don't eat table sugar. The absolute stats for table sugar have taken a nosedive. We really don't eat so much sugar at all as sugar. But believe me, we are consuming it in so many different things. It's in savoury products, it's in sauces, it's in bought meat that's packed. Anything that's got a shelf life and is pre-packed is going to have some kind of stabilizer and sugar in there because it helps to keep the food longer. So if you're eating packet food, unless you're making every single thing yourself, which is ridiculous, you're not going to do, I don't, you are going to be taking in probably more sugar than you realise. And if you're not taking in sugar, you're going to be taking in sweeteners. And unfortunately, the chemicals and stuff in the sweeteners are not recognised by your body, so your body is having to deal with those via the liver. And the liver is already going to be overworked, trying to deal with everything else that is going on as far as the hormones are concerned. So we've got an issue with us eating and not chewing well, us eating without getting ready to actually eat, without getting into the parasympathetic, relax, sit, prepare your body, enjoy what's coming. We don't do that anymore. We're then eating the wrong types of foods, the foods that cause inflammation. And the easiest way to think about it is just wheat, sugar, dairy. They are the main culprits. Now, does that mean you should all just rush off now and cut everything out of your diet? No, right? That's not going to help, because remember what I said back at the beginning, it's emotional stress, right? That's the kicker. It's the biggest thing, yeah? Yes, your food's vitally important, but doing things like giving yourself time to sit down at the table and eat, giving yourself time to get into that parasympathetic nervous system and just breathe, smell the food, anticipate it. That kind of thing is more important often than what you're actually eating, and chewing really, really well. Now, I remember way back when I was a little kid, I think it was my great-grandma said something like, you should chew every mouthful 25 times or 30 times, I think it was. And I remember counting, and that, blimey, that's a heck of a lot of times. But actually, she wasn't far off, because we now know that if you can chew your food enough that it's actually like liquid before you swallow it, your digestive system is going to work so much better, and your chances of having inflammation issues and therefore leaky gut issues and therefore autoimmune issues are so much less. Just that simple thing. Well, so the other thing that I wanted to kind of cover was that a lot of the issues that we have with environmental toxins are often something that we kind of just push to one side. Well, it can't be that important. But if you are someone, and I know quite a few of you have said, well, I have a healthy diet, but I still seem to be having issues. And it may well be that you're confused with what actually is a healthy diet. It may well be that you're eating healthy foods, but your body, your individual body, does not deal with them very well. And that's a whole. But also something gets dismissed completely by your GP and by so many people are the environmental toxins that we are surrounded by. And actually it's twofold. So I'm thinking on two different lines here. First of all, the toxins in your home are going to have an effect because what we breathe in goes in on a cellular level, and everything you do, as well as everything you think, affects how your body works on a cellular level. And ultimately, guys, that's all we are. Well, actually, we're cells and we're bacteria. We're more bacteria than anything. We're more bacteria than human. So it affects the bacteria in your gut, and the bacteria in your gut affects whether your immune system is going to be working well and whether you're going to have inflammation. By the way, that gut bacteria also affects whether you crave certain foods or not. And unfortunately, most of us, because we eat a diet that is often pre-packaged food, a sandwich at lunchtime, maybe it's bought from a well-known supermarket or cafe or coffee shop. And so we are all going to be having, unfortunately, more bad bacteria than good, unless we are one of the 2%, and it's that low, the 2% who take their own food to work and who always eat food made from scratch. It's a tiny amount of people. So the majority of us are walking around with more bad bacteria than good. And the problem with that is we're also then putting toxins onto our body. Things like your skin creams, your well-known brands, are going to have things in them like called phytates, and those are going to have an effect as far as your immune system is concerned. And inflammation for some people. You may know somebody who perhaps has an allergy to perfume, for example, and that is very much their body saying, no, I can't handle it. It has an effect on me. It's like an inflammatory type of membranes are getting inflamed, and that's why you have to sneeze. We've also got things like, trying to find my notes here because I don't want to get my words wrong. Yeah, we've got things, glyphosate, which is a weed killer, and I'm sure you've seen it. You can buy it in the supermarket for your own garden. That stuff is horrific as far as your body and inflammation and causing issues with autoimmune diseases is concerned. Things like fluoride that's in your toothpaste, we now know that that also creates problems with the brain and the cells in the brain and inflammation. We also know that chlorine that's in your swimming pool and chlorine that can get put in some water to help with cleaning it, that also affects us. And then we've got things like, if you've got the old-fashioned grey fillings, which a lot of us my sort of age and older probably do have. I've got rid of most of mine now. And that, by the way, if you're going to, for the simple reason that if you just have them all yanked out, unless your detoxification pathways are in really good health, you could feel really, really poorly and get symptoms like an autoimmune disease because of the mercury getting into your blood system. So please don't think if you need to get rid of them all. Yes, eventually over time, but make sure you go to a dentist who knows how to do it properly. Some haven't a clue what you're talking about, and some are very clued up on it. So do your due diligence on that if you're going to get rid of your mercury fillings. Things like mold. Right, I live in an old house. It's an old Victorian house, and to be fair, it's not been very well looked after by the previous owners, which means that there is quite has affected my recovery, and I'm going through a bit of a blip with my Hashimoto's at the moment. And I know that the mold in this house and what is happening now, the seasons are changing and it's getting a little bit damper and it's getting a little bit warmer. Those are ideal circumstances for the mold to grow, and it's having an effect on me. So I've got to be really diligent about cleaning this stuff, but when I clean it, I've got to make sure I'm looking after myself. So these things affect my autoimmune issues. Now, I know that I've got an autoimmune disease problem, but I can manage it. But a lot of people don't even know. And this is where you need to look at these things as well. When I talked about glyphosate and Roundup, this again does full circle back to your gut issues and wheat and grains. And I know a lot of people think, oh, you know, wheat, it's the gluten thing. Actually, no. For some people, yes. But being gluten-free is kind of like quite trendy at the moment, isn't it? And it has been for the last 2 or 3 years. Is that going to help you if you've got an autoimmune issue? Can you just go, oh, I can eat bread and I can eat grains as long as they're gluten-free, I'm fine? No. But not because of the gluten necessarily. Because of the way that it's been grown and because of the glyphosate that's been used, the pesticides that they use on it. You have now got wheat and grains that have been genetically modified. You may have heard of GMO crops. And they are genetically modified because it means that they can get more yield faster because we are a growing population. And it's in the food industry's financial best interests to do that. Just as a caveat, just to let you know, their marketing is really not concerned at the end of the day with your health. Yeah, there are certain supermarkets and food chains that are very much concerned with the ingredients that they use. Marks and Spencer's and Waitrose are a couple that do a lot to work on the quality of their produce. Having said that though, they all have their value range, and all of those products are going to be the ones that have been made produced from GMO crops, and those GMO crops are hybridized, which means that the gluten that used to be in grains is now completely different, which is why it would appear that we've got more and more people having intolerances and autoimmune issues. It's to do with our food manufacturing for sure, but it's also to do with our emotional state. We live in a faster world, we live in a more stressful world. As women, we've taken on so much more. No longer are we the woman who stays at home, looks after the family and is proud of how clean her home is and how wonderful her home cooked food is. Now we have to have the career and the clothing and the holidays and the right people that we hang about with and go to the right restaurants and socialise in the right places, and all of that pressure. Plus we're looking after our kids who have to be the perfect kids, and we've probably got older parents who need us to look after them as well. So we are splitting ourselves, not just in 2, but like in 5 or 6. So we are massively stressed. Our quality of food is pretty poor. Unless you are growing your own or you're getting organic and you know exactly what it's been grown in soil wise and what's been put on it or not put on it pesticide, fungicide wise, you are going to be ingesting these toxins, and these things cause inflammation on a cellular level, and they cause those little holes to appear in your gut over time. And this is why autoimmune issues are getting more and more prevalent. So what can you do? It's all very well giving me this doom and gloom story, Vic. What can I do? Right, well, what you can do is, first of all, look at your stress. Look at the language that you are using in your head. And put a post on yesterday on purpose that said, what you focus on, yeah, is what you're going to get. So if you focus on what you don't want or what you're not going to do, that's going to be at the forefront of your mind. Your brain doesn't work like that. You need to focus on what you will do and what you do want. So if I want to feel relaxed and stressed, if I want to feel relaxed, I'm not going to say to myself, I don't want. Brain is like a GPS system, and it hears the word stressed and it goes, oh, she wants to feel stressed. Okay, I'll make her feel stressed. Your brain will do what you tell it to do. It's like a computer. You've got to input the right information if you want the result. So if I say I don't want to feel stressed, your brain hears the word stressed, it's going to do everything to keep you feeling stressed. So I need to tell myself what I do want. So I want to feel calm and relaxed. Your brain hears calm and relaxed. So that's how you're going to start to feel. Now, it seems too simplistic, and this is why people don't do it. But I can tell you this, give yourself just 5 days to change the way that you talk in your own head, change the way that you think. Listen to the words that you use when you're talking to other people. How are you today? Oh, well, I've got a pain in my shoulder, and oh, my hip's not so good, and oh, do you know, I've got so much work on. How do you think that's going to make you feel? It's going to make you feel down. It's going to remind you of the pain. Yeah, and your brain's going to go, oh, she wants pain, she wants too much to do, and that's going to continue. So how about you say, I'm doing really good, thank you, how are you? Push the emphasis back onto the other person, because your brain hears, I'm doing good. I know you're going to go, oh, it's too woo-woo, that's not going to work. I'm going to just say, try it. Because I was the most sceptical person in the world. I was like, that's so illogical, that can't possibly work, it's way too easy. Give it a whirl. One of my favourite sayings ever is, you never know until you have a go. And that is now my mantra for life. Because we have so many preconceived ideas about how things are going to be, and that is what stresses us out to hell more than anything. Our expectations are probably the biggest stressor. The expectations we have as ourselves, as women, as mothers, as daughters, as sisters, as family members, as managers, as business owners, and every other role or hat you want to put on, we have crazy expectations of ourselves usually. The women in this group, and I purposely targeted this group for professional, intelligent, sensible, go-getting females, right? So you are all those things. Yeah, you're not the kind of women who just goes, yeah, whatever, I don't really care. That's not you, otherwise you wouldn't have joined this group. So I must, oh no, you lost me. Oh, hopefully I'm back. So yourself has to be the number one thing that you can do. And then what else can you do? Well, here's the thing. This is what I would suggest that you do to start with, is you look at, first of all, just look, get curious. This is my second mantra about life. Get curious. So first one is, you never know till you have a go. Second one is, get curious. Get curious about how many of those foods I've mentioned do you actually eat in a day? And then how often in a day? So how many times a day do you eat something that contains wheat or a grain? How often, how many times a day do you consume something that has dairy in it, that has casein? So it might be milk, it might be cheese, it might be yogurt. How often are you taking in sugar? And it might not be table sugar, it's very unlikely to be. I mean, it could be, but it's cakes, it's biscuits, it's bought salad dressings, it's ketchup, it's bread, which is both sugar and wheat. So look at how many times a day you are taking them in. Get curious, get to know. It may be more than you think. And my advice to anybody is, if you are going to make some dietary changes, start with the ones that feel doable. There is absolutely no point in you having a whole list of things that you need to change and you try and do everything. It's just not going to happen. You're just going to stress yourself out. You probably end up eating more and feel even worse. It's just completely delusional and pointless. So in all of my programs, whether it's the Eliminate to Feel Great plan, we taper into that over 5 days. Whether it's the 6-month-long Heal, that's the gut and the hormone 6 months program, we got to take our time because your body needs to adapt. And this is, I think, and I'm going to finish on this because this is the thing that most people get wrong when it comes to feeling better, is you trying to do it too quick and you're going to fail. That's why quick fix diets do not work. Right? You need to allow your body to adapt to the changes. If you expect to feel better in a couple of weeks, having felt rubbish for 10 plus years, then you can honestly agree, I'm sure, that's a bit ridiculous. That's a bit of a crazy expectation. How about you at least give yourself a month to try and get rid of some of the foods that I've mentioned. Work on the ones that are easiest first. The best way to help you if you have already got an autoimmune issue is to cut out sugar, wheat and dairy as quickly as you are able. That does not mean you go do it overnight. You make sure that you've got alternatives. So there are nut milks, there are rice milks, there are oat milks. Yeah, do not go down the road of using soy as an alternative. So the key here is, if you have an autoimmune issue, you do not have to suffer in pain. You don't have to resign yourself to always feeling like this. You can change it, but you need to allow yourself the time to get rid of the foods that are potentially causing you big issues. Then we need to heal the gut, right? Without healing the gut and trying to think that we can go back to eating those foods again and all will be tickety-boo, again, that's ridiculous. So you would need to heal the gut, and there are very simple protocols that you can do, and it's all natural. I'm not talking about medications here, and I'm not talking about popping a load of supplements. Things like bone broth, things like eating fresh greens and fresh fruits in season that are organic, that are not from the supermarket and haven't been shipped in from crazy countries where they've been sprayed with goodness knows what. Things like allowing yourself to relax and be calm. Taking natural herbs that are really going to help. We've got a ton of natural herbs that help our gut. Things that make foods taste good too. So we've got, you know, things like turmeric and cumin and black pepper, all are really help to get back to normal and get the good microbacteria, the good bacteria in your microbiome, getting rid of more of the bad stuff. So we can also use things like anxiety. So you might have heard of tapping in various different spots where you start here and you go underneath your eye and you go underneath your nose and that, I mean, I'll do a whole thing on tapping, but tapping helps with anxiety. Things like herbs and supplements that you can buy from the health food shop, rhodiola, things like ashwagandha, all really helpful. For some people, St. John's wort helps. For some people it doesn't, but for some people it does. So there are a ton of things that you can do. But first and foremost, think about where you're at right now. That's the key thing. Where am I now? How stressed am I? How many of those inflammatory foods am I eating on a daily basis, and how often am I eating them? How quickly could I taper those down and just start to see how I feel? Going to change my thinking. Going to stop thinking in the negative and about what I don't want and focusing on what I do want, because then my brain's going to give me that. I'm going to allow myself to look forward to meals and to have time to sit, relax and get into that parasympathetic nervous system where my body can actually do what it's supposed to do when it's trying to digest food. And allow yourself some me time. Just time for you. One of the best things you can do is have an Epsom salt bath. Most women I know are deficient in magnesium, and a lot of them do not sleep well. Magnesium salt bath, 20 minutes before bed, that deals with both of those issues. Just shut out the world, tell the family this is your time. You can do it for yourself, because I promise you, over time, it will make you feel better. And just remember this, you didn't feel crap immediately. It took a while. Yeah, your autoimmune issue did not happen overnight. It took a while, and you're not going to heal overnight. Allow yourself to get better. Allow your body to adapt, and do it in a way that is manageable so that you're not creating any more stress for you. And if you want to check out any of the programs that I do, and I'm going to be launching the Eliminate to Feel Great plan again at the end of April. I'll also be launching the Heal program that carries on from that as well. And there's various other programs. If you want to check out the website, www.gofigurecoaching.com. There's also a little free guide on the homepage there about how you can flatten your belly quickly. And that again is talking about you getting rid of those inflammatory foods. That's your first step. So I went on a far too long, as I always do. To those of you stuck with me, thank you so much. I will be putting this in the group as a saved video. I heard that perhaps I kept cutting out, so I think perhaps the reception in the room that I'm in is not great, so I'm going to try and do my lives from somewhere else next time. If it is really horrible, then what I will do is I'll not publish this, but I'll do a video giving you the same information, probably more succinctly, and post it on the page. If you've got any questions, folks, if anything pops up afterwards, then please do ask. And remember, there is no silly question. If it's popped up into your head, it means it's a question you want answering. And there's probably a load of other ladies would appreciate it as well. Have a lovely evening, folks, whatever you do for the rest of the evening. Enjoy, get to bed early. And no, Yvonne wouldn't be. It would be mine. It would be my Wi-Fi. And I'll hopefully see you tomorrow in Pilates, Yvonne, where we can rest and chill and get into that parasympathetic nervous system. Ladies who are watching, thank you for your time. And I hope to speak to you very soon. Ciao.